Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Dimitri Johnson, and you're listening to MMALatestNews.com.
It's time to roll, baby.
Hello and welcome back to Split Decision. My name is James Sweetenham. This is Mitch Ivey, and of course, there's only one place we can start. The notorious one, Conor McGregor. He was back in action and he defeated Donald "Cowboy" Cerrone in just 40 seconds of the very first round. Mitch, what a comeback!
Wow, the king is back, isn't he? It was fantastic. It was kind of disappointing to see him in there just for 40 seconds. I wanted to see more, but what a performance he put on.
Absolutely terrific. Well, from start to finish, of course, it was only 40 seconds, so I don't know how much we can read into it, but right from the offset, those shoulders were impressive. His head kick was impressive. He dismantled Cerrone. Is this a case of Cerrone being somewhat over the hill, or is McGregor right back to his best?
Oh, I think it's hard to say. We didn't see, everyone came into this saying that one side was McGregor's going to walk from, the other one was be careful, Cerrone's got a head kick. Now, we saw McGregor pull off the head kick out of the two of them, and listen to Chow, he hit him 19 times out of 20 inside 40 seconds. It's a ridiculous amount, so I don't think it's the best. It's hard to tell someone. It's like the Aldo fight. You don't see him. We didn't learn anything new from him other than maybe he's learned some tactics with the shoulder barge. It was more, he rushed him, really. It wasn't an Alvarez performance or a Nate Diaz 2 performance where you learn about the fighter. It was more, McGregor is back, and it'd be interesting to see what he does next.
Yeah, of course, Cowboy's a notoriously slow starter. No pun, obviously, with the notorious. But I think he had to take advantage of that. Cowboy getting slightly older, of course, just in Gaethje dismantled him in a round.
He's taken some beatings over the past few fights. Tony Ferguson cut him up bad, broke his nose. Gaethje got rid of him pretty quickly, and now, obviously, McGregor took 40 seconds, which is, I believe, the quickest anyone's taken out Cerrone, sorry.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the mind games, that's something that McGregor's always been so famous for. He didn't do any of that in the build-up this time around. He was very respectful.
And he kept to it at the end as well.
And mentally, he looked right throughout, because that could be, in fact, he completely lost the plot. Obviously, what he was doing outside the octagon was more than unacceptable, and he performed very poorly on the night. He looked flat, he looked sloppy, but he looked back to his best on Saturday night. So do you think this new perspective that McGregor's going in with, being calm and cool and collected, do you think this is going to suit him in future fights? Or is he going to go right back to the trash talk when he faces a Masvidal or, a Khabib or something like that?
I think it's the right tool for the right job. Cerrone is a legend. Let's not get it mixed up. He is a legend. And those two didn't really have any bad blood. It was a fight that was... McGregor's almost put a tweet out, didn't he? I think it was after the Tony Ferguson fight, being like, testing the waters with Cerrone. And then Gaethje came through and almost came at McGregor and said, he'll have the fight. Now, I think that's a bit more notoriety, there's a bit more aggression there, so whether he can come into that one as calm, I don't know, but I think it was more about this one being the first one, showing that he has changed, really. It will tell over time how much he has changed.
Yeah, do you think everything that's happened to him over the past couple of years has humbled him, or do you think this is just a public persona that he's trying to put on to win back the fans?
I don't think it's a public persona. I think the gimmick of the notorious one that he brought in, probably between Alvarez and Mayweather, it broke him. Now, whether he's peeled that back, I don't know how many people he had in his sort of circle at that point, but he seems to have really reducing. He's still got D there, he's still got the likes of John Callaghan, which there was questions of his team back after the Khabib fight, whether they were breaking up, who would be coaching him for the next fight if he had one. But we got the whole team together. His coach from Crumlin Boxing, Peter Sutcliffe. So he's got that inaugural circle around him again, which is good, and I think it's going to keep his head on his shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely. There's tons of opponents that McGregor could be taking on next, and we'll get onto that a little bit later in the show, but let's just review the card. Maycee Barber, the injury palaver, what did you make of it?
You know what? It was an underrated card. A lot of people came into this card saying, this isn't worth the money, isn't worth this and that. Now, we had Claudia Gadelha fall out, which was sad to see, but it was a fantastic card. We had some fantastic finishes. Now, Maycee Barber was very unfortunate. Now, I think she was only on her 9th pro fight. Roxanne Modafferi came to this as a very heavy underdog, but she's had 40 pro fights, and that experience can't be undenied.
Yeah, and Anthony Pettis was submitted by Ferreira. And Anthony Pettis, outside of that fantastic win against Stephen Thompson, which I think took us all by surprise, he hasn't looked great as of late. Of course, there's the Nate Diaz loss. He performed well in the Tony Ferguson fight, but it was a loss. He was struggling at 145 when he fought Holloway. Yep. Nothing's really worked out for him. There's rumours that he could be making the switch towards Bellator. Of course, they're constantly
his brother's over there as well.
Well, he is, yeah. And they're constantly on the lookout, for the ex-UFC stars. I think at this stage of Anthony Pettis' career, I don't see him becoming a UFC champion again, and I think that might be the appropriate move, Mitch.
Potentially, and I saw someone, I think it was in our group chat, said maybe PFL. PFL would be a good shout for someone like Anthony Pettis, but he has taken a lot of wear and tear. He's had a long career for someone he's still relatively quite young, but he's had multiple hand breaks, in his previous fights, and he didn't look great the other night against Diego Ferreira, who is now on a 6-fight win streak. So he's got the rub of the green on his thorn with Diego Ferreira, but Pettis is in a weird place at the moment. It's almost like he's in that same Kevin Lee bit. He's not big enough for a 170, but he's not good enough at 155 at the moment.
Yeah. Let's talk Holly Holm. It seems like she's constantly getting these co-main event slots. It's been like that since she beat Ronda Rousey. Yep. She's been struggling. I think she's lost 5 of the last 7, something ridiculous.
Cyborg
like
Nunes, they're big fights that she's lost.
But she's back. She beat Raquel Pennington for the second time. Raquel Pennington's been complaining because Holly Holm held on to it. Look, Mitch, if we're going to be honest, this is mixed martial arts. If you don't like the grappling, do K1. Exactly,
and it's like Pennington, neither of them looked really great, but it seemed Holly Holm's probably a slightly bigger woman in terms of her mass, so she probably came in a little heavier than Pennington, so it was able to maximize that use of grappling and hold her up against the cage. Now we see Khabib do it and we praise him for it, but he always brings in the action with it. He's striking, he's trying to look for submission, so it's when you're holding up against the cage and not really doing anything with it where is the problem. And I know Dana White's come out and criticized the referee of the night because of allowing the fight to slow down pretty much.
Right, let's talk about what we all want to speak about. Conor McGregor, there's so many options on the table for him. Let's kick it off. Let's just go through them all.
Yep.
Justin Gaethje, I think that would be a terrific fight. I think Justin Gaethje has all the wrestling credentials in the world to beat McGregor. Do I think he would? I would edge slightly towards Conor. I think that of all the potential fights he's got next, I think it's the probably only one I would outright pick him to win. I think it's a very winnable fight because Justin Gaethje, despite that incredible wrestling background, he loves to fight with his face. He walks forward, and I think he'd walk onto a Conor McGregor left hand.
I think you've nailed that pretty much. I think Gaethje is probably a fight I'd want to see. Whether it'd be I know Coach Cavs came out and said he'd like that at 170. Now I think if Conor wants that lightweight title, Gaethje's probably the rightful next in line for it after Tony and Khabib. So he should have to fight him and beat him. Now that could be something that could be on the co-main or, on that card at UFC 249. Because I think that would be smart because Khabib and Tony have both had a history of pulling out of fights. So maybe having those two on the card just to keep it just in case.
Is it Conor and Justin Gaethje on the card?
Conor and Gaethje, yeah.
Would Conor take a co-main event slot, Mitch? I don't think so. I think so. He's a superstar. I think you need him in main events exclusively.
He does, but can you imagine, UFC 249, we have 4 of the 4 top lightweight on the card.
Absolutely, it'd be a fantastic card, Mitch,
fantastic night.
I don't think the notorious one would be.
Make it a 5-round co-main then. What's stopping the UFC?
No, I mean, I'm saying that his ego will not allow him to be in a co-main event slot. He will want a main event slot, which is why I think if he does fight Gaethje, it's going to be a pay-per-view. No matter who he fights, if he chose
it's going to be a pay-per-view for sure.
If he chose to do another couple of warm-ups like with Mike Perry or an RDA, he'd still want to be a main event, and it's still probably do bigger pay-per-view buys than anybody else in the sport. That's the drawing power that this man has. Another option, and we're going to stick at 170 for this one. The trilogy with Nate Diaz, of course, the first fight, fantastic. Nate Diaz shot the world when he rear naked choked him. The rematch, incredible. Some people had that either way. I personally edged it towards Conor McGregor, but it was a very, very close fight. Nate Diaz had 2 fights since, of course. He beat Anthony Pettis in stunning fashion. Lost to Jorge Masvidal quite comfortably, but the rivalry's still there. The grudge is still there. There's a score to be settled. Could that be the next fight?
I don't think it'll be the next fight. I think it's a fight that, it's always going to be there, a trilogy fight. It's 1 round apiece to them. They're both probably getting older now. I think Diaz has maybe come to the end, would you say, of his career? Has he got
think he's
much
coming
left
towards
in him?
the end. I know I just said that Justin Gaethje is the only fight I'd outright pick him for. I think at this stage I might also pick him to beat the Nate Diaz fight. And I say that because how long can Nate Diaz go on for? The man's a zombie and he's gone through war after war after war.
Even Masvidal was a war.
Must have took years off. That Masvidal fight, it's very rare you see Nate Diaz rocked to his core, and he was rocked with that head kick, and then he got battered for 3 rounds. And I think the way Conor McGregor looked at 170, I now think he's grown into that weight. I used to think he was far too small. It looked like he was carrying too much muscle. Now I think he's a fully fledged welterweight, and I think it's another winnable fight for him.
Yeah, I think he looked fantastic in weighing. You've seen the weigh-in comparison of 145 to 170 for Conor McGregor.
He looked like a dead man walking at 145.
It's absolutely ridiculous. So he looks healthy. I don't know. He's 31 years of age, so lightweight should be doable for him. It's only another 15 pounds, and I think he has 160 going into the last week of fight week. But I want that Masvidal fight. I think that's the fight to make.
I like it. So let's talk about that next.
It just sounds incredible. It's both of them are great on the mic. Jorge Masvidal's probably, I would say, the biggest star last year. McGregor sort of taking that back, but it's like a tug of war of the biggest star in the UFC. And to maybe, I don't like this idea of putting the BMF belt on the line, But if that's an extra added bit of something just to make that
BMF
fight,
belt and potentially a UFC welterweight interim title you could do. I think to beat Conor McGregor, you can't feel the big moment. And I think that's what Nate Diaz does brilliantly, because I don't think Nate Diaz cares. I don't think Khabib cares. If you look at like an Eddie Alvarez or a Donald Cerrone, I think the moment got to him a little bit. The moment will definitely not get to Jorge Masvidal. If anything, it'll motivate him. His three biggest fights.
He ate it up. Did you see him in his Versace robe? He was absolutely eating up being there.
He lives for it. His three biggest fights: Darren Till, huge knockout left hook
in London
after going down in the first round himself. Ben Askren run through him with a flying knee. Ben Askren was 19-0 at the time, and there was all the trash talk. Ben Askren had got under Jorge Masvidal's skin, which shows you, if you're Conor McGregor, do you really want to get under that man's skin? And then the third fight, he absolutely annihilated Nate Diaz.
He did.
So Jorge Masvidal is coming in the form of his life. He's the best he's ever been, and I think Jorge Masvidal has to go in a favourite against Conor McGregor.
Definitely, I think International Fight Week, that fight is pretty much made for that. Now, Conor McGregor's come out and said he doesn't want to wait until Khabib and Tony is done, because obviously if Khabib wins, he goes on his break for Ramadan, and we won't probably see him again until September. So that's too long for McGregor. He wants to be active. So Masvidal in July, perhaps Gaethje in June, July-ish.
Yeah, potentially.
It could all work.
Let's talk a little bit about that fight, because obviously there's two potential opponents in there for Conor McGregor. Khabib.
Yep.
As good as Conor looked on the weekend, and I know he looked flat in the first Khabib fight, I still think it's a stylistic nightmare for him. I still think he gets taken down and beaten quite comfortably, Mitch. How do you see it?
I think it's a tough one to decide, because he did get annihilated against him in the first one, but it's without a clean camp. It was, he had his issues, he had his problems. Now, whether a fresh Conor McGregor that's got his mindset on it, he seems to be fantastic, because once he puts his mind on something, he gets it done. Now, Diaz, it seems like he was Diaz's first one. Such a late replacement, he wasn't able to adapt. But you saw how he dealt with that in the rematch. He saw his weaknesses. He saw what he needed to develop, and he achieved his goal at the end of the day. So whether he can do that against Khabib, I think Khabib is an absolute monster, and whether he stays undefeated against Tony Ferguson. Even if Tony Ferguson could drop out and then we get Conor just slide back in, he's not injured at all. So Khabib and Ferguson haven't got exactly a great history of getting into the cage. So who knows?
4 times off.
Who knows?
I'm lucky. I think, just to talk about your Nate Diaz point, you're absolutely right that he took things from the first fight and made them better for the rematch. Most notably his gas tank, and of course looking after his energy, because he expended far too much early. But in that first Nate Diaz fight, he had teed off on him for a round and a half. Whereas in the Khabib fight, he didn't really have any success whatsoever, and I don't think he has an answer for that level of grappling. But while we're talking grappling, let's say Tony Ferguson, Khabib takes Tony Ferguson down. Tony elbows the live part of him.
Doctor stoppage.
Doctor stoppage are in. Khabib's cut to ribbons, done. Tony wins the fight. Tony's the UFC champion.
Yep.
Does Tony beat Conor McGregor? Because Tony's got an incredible ground game. He could slice McGregor up on his back. I think he's got a lot more heart than Conor McGregor. I think he can keep going longer, far better fitness.
His cardio is definitely better than McGregor's, flawlessly.
Tony Ferguson is sometimes to his detriment a little bit too game.
He likes to get hit,
and Conor McGregor hits very hard. Anthony Pettis put Ferguson over, nearly got to him. Kevin Lee had success against Tony Ferguson. If it's on the feet, as awkward as Tony is, I think you have to favour Conor.
I think so too. I think McGregor's got such a bomb in that left hand. I wish this weekend had gone a little longer, just so we could see what changes he had made, because he came out so fast, it was almost done in a flash, and Herb Dean should have probably stopped it a little sooner than that. But I want to see McGregor. I want to see the Alvarez McGregor, if possible. Someone that goes 2 rounds flawlessly, doesn't get hit. And Tony Ferguson is probably that kind of opponent who would quite happily stand up with him. Now, he's got better jiu-jitsu, profoundly, and he's got some better skills than McGregor has. But on the feet, it'll be a very, very good fight. Any of these fights are fantastic fights.
There's one more
other
in
than
the cage, which is the one that you don't like. I'm assuming this is the last one we're going to talk about. Kamaru Usman. Look, Colby Covington did absolutely everything he could to get into Kamaru Usman's head, and I think he did. I think Kamaru could have been slightly better in that fight, but either way, it was still enough to beat. It was still enough to beat Covington. It was,
and I thought Covington did well to sell that fight. I think Usman, Usman had a terrible weekend, should we say, with what happened to him this weekend. Did you see what happened to his Twitter?
Oh, we got hacked, didn't we?
Hacked.
What was tweeted, Mitch? I haven't actually seen the content.
I can't repeat what was being tweeted on that account. That was horrendous for him, and he had bigger things to be dealing with than watching Conor McGregor in the cage. But yeah, that isn't a fight I want to see. Usman is so naturally, he's naturally bigger than him, and what he did with Tyron Woodley, what he'd done with Covington, you can see he had a chin, because Covington was throwing bombs at him, and he just took it. So I don't know what that left hand takes him down. He's got a gas tank for days, and to be honest, I don't want to see McGregor just walk into a welterweight title.
He's far too big as well, Kamara. I think he takes Conor McGregor down and handles him pretty comfortably.
And we've got the likes of Tyron Woodley and Leon Edwards that are probably more deserving of that. If Leon Edwards win, of course.
Now, I want to talk a little
UFC
bit about
London.
that fight, but let's just concentrate on the final options for Conor McGregor. And for whatever reason, this is still being rumoured. Floyd Mayweather he's out the limelight. He posted a picture of himself with Conor McGregor on his Instagram. He's desperate for a rematch. Look, I don't know how Floyd blows for all that money. He's got the TNT brand. He's got his strip clubs. He's got so much merchandise out there.
You can see where that's going.
Manages to need more money. I think Floyd is addicted.
White rolls, right?
I think he's addicted to the spotlight, Mitch, and you can understand why. Because for Floyd Mayweather's been fighting as long as I've been alive in big pay-per-view fights, from Canelo to Ricky Hatton to Manny Pacquiao to Marcus Maidana. You know, he just can't stop, and he's addicted to that limelight, and he's addicted to being the best, and you can't blame him for that. But at this stage, are you going to start tarnishing your legacy by fighting like Japanese midgets?
Each time he comes back, though,
McGregor.
Each time he comes back, though, there is going to be a point where he's going to lose that record. Each time he comes back, because
he's not taking too much of a risk against Conor. It's still an easy fight.
But his agent will catch up with him, and he's obviously probably getting bored. Whether he needs the financial thing, it must be hard being 50-0. Is he 50, 51-0?
50-0 now, yeah.
I don't know if they can count that one on his kickboxing against the Rising guy.
Yeah, no,
that counts. But no. So 50-0, you know, he's still a big name in the sport. And you look at Canelo Alvarez, who's pulling up trees. Now, I think Brendan was talking about this, comparing if you want 100 mil to fight Canelo or someone like Khabib or McGregor, who is naturally not as good as Canelo, and he's not as much of the risk. You'd probably take it, but I don't. We saw so much of McGregor in the build-up to this fight saying, I'm back, I want a season in the UFC, I want a season fighting mixed martial arts. Please just don't have this fight and go back to boxing. As much as the temptation is there for the financial gain of it, I want to see McGregor in the octagon for this year at least.
As much as Conor McGregor says he's got a goal, you know, of returning to boxing and potentially winning a world title, there isn't a world title Conor McGregor can pick up in any weight division, unfortunately. Conor McGregor will be lucky to win an Irish title.
Yes.
And that's the reality. They're two completely different sports. I think Floyd beats him again. There's also been rumblings of the Manny Pacquiao fight. I don't understand why. I don't want to see that. Because Manny Pacquiao doesn't speak brilliant English. I mean, he can get by, but it's not a fight that's going to particularly sell. No. There's rumours again of the Paulie Malignaggi fight, but I mean, Artem Lobov, I think, dealt with that quite comfortably.
Yes.
So I don't think there's any reason why. I want to see Conor McGregor do what he does best, and I want us to be able to remember his legacy for how good he was, because if he keeps going back to boxing, we're never going to know.
No.
He spent several years out the cage when he could have been putting together big victories. If after the Eddie Alvarez fight, he'd have stayed at 155 and say, fought Tony Ferguson.
Rafael dos Anjos was there at the time.
There were so many people, and he could have
so many fighters there.
He could have enhanced his legacy. You can't blame him for taking the Floyd Mayweather spot.
He set his family up for a good 25, 50 years, perhaps, if he's smart with it.
Yeah,
he seems to be going for it pretty quickly.
One last crossover option, and this isn't for him to fight. This is for somebody for him to train. Tyson Fury's been out in the media saying that him and Conor McGregor have sat down. They've had a conversation. Conor wants to coach him. Conor, in an interview with BT Sport this weekend, said that he's never even met Tyson. There's been no conversation whatsoever. I think Tyson's probably winding up the media like he does.
Tyson seems to be up with Darren Till at the moment, which are two heavy hitters. But that is such... Tyson Fury and McGregor that's fireworks. It's both very intellectual fighting knowledge, but as soon as they start partying, that is going to be uproar.
It would be a nightmare. A night out with Tyson Fury and Conor McGregor.
That's not. You're ending up in a cell, aren't you, at the end of that night?
Well, absolutely guaranteed.
So yeah, Tyson Fury. You know, he's fighting Deontay Wilder next, and he's probably the hardest hitter in boxing. He's probably
probably the hardest hitter he's ever lived.
You know, we could probably put some McGregor comparisons there. He's got a very heavy hand. He hasn't got the best skills all round.
I mean, from a technical perspective, Conor McGregor is an extremely precise puncher. Deontay Wilder is very far from a technically precise puncher.
No, but once he hits you, it's game over.
It's game, set, match.
It's game over. Luis Ortiz is still had the nightmares twice.
Absolutely,
twice. Yeah. Winning the rounds, but getting knocked out.
Luis Ortiz and Deontay Wilder had 2 fights, 18 rounds in total. They had up the 2 fights. Luis Ortiz won 15 of those rounds. Mm-hmm. And that sums up how big that Deontay Wilder right hand is.
And Tyson Fury got up twice, like the Undertaker the second time around. And of course, that fight's February 22nd, and that'll be an extremely entertaining one. All the best to Tyson Fury. Definitely. But let's talk a little bit about something you wanted to discuss earlier. It's finally been confirmed. London, Tyron Woodley
Leon Edwards. And after the Michael Bisping-Anderson Silva fight, we had a bit of a hiatus in London. I think we had Vadim and Volkov headlining, Jimmy Manuva versus Corey Anderson.
Yep.
But now it feels like we've got two big fights back-to-back. We had Darren Till, Masvidal last year. This year, this might actually be the best fight in terms of quality to headline in London. Leon Edwards, Tyron Woodley, two men in and around their prime.
Yeah, former champion.
The winner absolutely has to get a title shot, you'd imagine.
I think it'd be interesting to see, because I know Dana White's come out and said if Leon Edwards wins, he's next in line for the title. But if Woodley wins, do you then go to Masvidal perhaps for the title?
I would, because the Kamaru Usman fight was so... Kamaru's been beat Woodley so comfortably that there's absolutely no...
I still want to see Woodley Colby as well. I want Woodley coming to...
Yeah, that's a good rivalry. I'd happily see that. And I'd like to see Masvidal potentially get the shot against Usman.
Yeah.
I think Leon can win this fight. Leon's been in the dark for far too long, low down on cards.
He's not been sold well.
He's not been sold well at all, and he's had 3 wins back-to-back against 3 very good campaigners in Cowboy Cerrone, Rafael dos Anjos and Gunnar Nelson. 3 terrific wins. He deserves a huge fight. And so many selling points. One, Darren Till got beat, and now he's back, and he can still be a star in the UK. But Leon Edwards, born in Jamaica, was literally listening to gunshots every day outside his house, has an incredible story, flew over to Birmingham, was involved in the gang life. He's relatable for a lot of people. He's completely turned his life around, but yet he's not been sold at all. And if anybody's suited for the BMF belt, it would be a Leon Edwards.
Yeah, and you got to think, Fabian Edwards is over at Bellator. Can you imagine having 2 brothers as champs?
Be fantastic.
Be fantastic for the sport. It's fantastic for Birmingham to get that on the map. MMA in Birmingham is on the rise, and you got the Edwards brothers actually at the forefront of that. Leon Edwards deserves this shot as much as anyone does. I'm glad I'm a bit, I understand the rankings, but he's on the B side of this event, which is kind of sad. I'd like to see him have walked out in the main event of that last and really be able to soak into that crowd, but I'm sure it won't get to him. I'm sure he's still proud and happy, and I'm hopefully going to be there. MMA Latest is hopefully going to be there as well, but I'm very excited for the card. It's a shame that Till's not on it, but I think Till has now slightly been promoted above a sort of fight night card. Yeah,
Till's going to most likely be on a pay-per-view. Jared Cannonier is the rumoured fight, and somebody who was meant to fight Jared Cannonier was Robert Whittaker. He's pulled out of that fight, and I don't think anybody's had worse luck than Robert Whittaker.
He's had a terrible 3 years.
When he fought for the interim title, he managed to get through it and win the fight, but he injured his knee quite badly in the opening round. He was then meant to have a homecoming fight against Luke Rockhold, had to pull out, unfortunately. Got the rematch with Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero missed weight, and therefore it wasn't even an official title defense. And Robert Whittaker injured his arm and had to fight through 5 horrible rounds without it.
Against Yoel Romero as well. That's
another
horrendous.
homecoming opportunity against Kelvin Gastelum, and his hernia popped out the night before the fight, and he had to pull out. And his bowel collapsed as well.
Yeah,
and then he fights Israel Adesanya in front of 50,000 of his home crowd. Gets cleaned up in 2 rounds. It was meant to have a speaking tour, had to cancel that for fight credentials, and then was meant to fight Cannonier. There's rumours of family issues. Dana White did an interview about the whole thing, and he was almost in tears. So we know what's going on about Robert Whittaker's family. Must be very bad. Bobby Knuckles, one of the nicest men in the sport, one of the most talented fighters. Apparently what he's doing, he's pulled out for very unselfish reasons, Dana White said. So something bad has gone on. We wish him all the best.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He's a champ inside and outside the octagon, but it sounds like he always comes across as a very nice guy, and what he's doing, what's been reported that he's doing is something that's very unselfish and a heroic movement from him.
Yeah, but anyways, Darren Till comes in. Who'd you fancy in that fight? Till, Cannonier, it's a great fight.
Okay, I'm happy. This is on UFC 238, isn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
Which is Romero and Adesanya. Now, I think this is a very smart move to keep Cannonier on that card, as well as perhaps putting Till on there, because Romero has got a history of missing weight for title fights.
He always misses. I don't think he's ever made weight, Mitch.
And true. And I think Till and Cannonier are both probably more likely to make 185 than he is. So should something happen to Romero, you could see one of these two in a title match.
And if that was to be the case, which one of the two deserves it more?
I think Till sells it more, but I think Cannonier he's had a couple more wins with Anderson Silva.
He beat Anderson Silva. Till's only had 1 victory against Kelvin Gastelum, and before that, realistically, he lost 3.
And I would have liked to see Till versus Whittaker. I would have liked to see that fight as well.
Stylistically, that would have been nice.
But, I think hopefully Romero makes weight, and I think Adesanya wants that fight. Paulo Costa's also in the mix for a title shot. Maybe you got to see Till, Cannonier. If Till beats Cannonier, then maybe Paulo Costa, then you can see him get a title shot. But he is favourable. He sells well in London and in England in general. And he's a great trash talker, really, with that Scouse sort of accent.
Fantastic trash talker.
And the way he delivers himself.
He's really resonated with people now. You know, of course, he was considered like a bit of a cocky Scouser. He robbed that taxi, didn't he, in Magaluf?
I think Masvidal stopped that as well, didn't he?
Yeah, Masvidal. But Till talked so openly about his nerves
definitely.
heading into the his last fight.
Against Gastelum,
the anxiety he was feeling. The fact that he didn't even want to be in there. And he's come for all that. And I think that's very relatable to people because fighters are obviously notoriously very hard men. And Darren Till was very open about his feelings, which I think people liked.
And I think there's also something to say that with how Adesanya took the 5 rounds against Gastelum, you could say something with Till dealt with Gastelum. Did he win by the unanimous decision? Or did he finish it?
It was a massively close fight.
Yeah, it was a close fight. So there's things I think we will see Till versus Adesanya soon. Whether it's this year, perhaps, I don't know. I think
we'll get it at Anfield potentially.
That would be incredible.
Because I think Stylebender is all about the big moments. Look, he's just gone to Robert Whittaker's home country and beat him in a stadium. I think he'd love to try and do the same thing to Darren Till.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
That's a great fight.
Definitely. Whether it's you could put that in a Wembley, perhaps, both.
No, Darren Till, he's just he'll want.
It's going to be in Liverpool, but I don't know what the capacity is. Is it 40, 50,000?
Yeah, that's enough though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I guess. Yeah, I don't know how big Till and Adesanya would if they could do 90,000, but they could certainly do Anfield.
It would sell 50,000. It would sell.
Yeah, that's
Scouts are fighting for a UFC World Title at Anfield.
I'm sold. I'm sold. Take my money.
Absolutely.
I'm sold.
Last thing I know you want to talk about, Chris Cyborg. She's making a Bellator debut this weekend. How excited are you, Mitch?
I am. I'm interested to see where she ranks. Julia Budd is a very good competitor and 145-pound champion. It's interesting to see Cyborg walk into Bellator and take a title shot. I guess there's not really. You wouldn't have it any other way with the name that Cyborg brings, and it's going to be interesting to see. Her last fight was against Felicia Spencer. She dealt with her pretty quickly. Also, the loss to Nunes. It's going to be an interesting weekend to see what happens.
Okay, anyway, thank you for tuning in to Split Decision as ever. We'll be back this time next week. I've been James Swindle. This has been Mitchy Ivy, and we'll see you next time.